You want me to marry you? His voice was calm, but disbelief flared like a storm behind his eyes. Across from him, Celine Carrington was the embodiment of composure draped in a navy blue suit that fit her like it had been stitched from silence and steel. Her arms were crossed, her stance unyielding. I'm offering a contract, she said plainly. Not affection, not intimacy, just marriage, 3 years, strictly business. You'll be compensated generously. Graham gave a short, humorless chuckle. You dragged me into this palace in the clouds to ask me to marry you? You don't even know me. I know enough, she replied, her tone clipped, clinical. No scandals, no politics, sole custody of your daughter, emotionally, stable, predictable. He flinched at that word remarkable. It echoed in the hollowness of that cavernous office like a slur dressed in politeness. He turned toward the sprawling city below, where Los Angeles shimmered under the haze like a dream half forgotten. Why me? Because I need a husband, she said, as if declaring a business need. My board is threatening to strip control of Carrington real estate. A stable marriage improves public perception, but I trust no one in my world. I need someone untouched by it. He faced her again. And my daughter, is she part of your calculation? She'll live here. She'll attend the best school. On full scholarship. Medical coverage, especially for her heart condition, will be insured. He raised an eyebrow. You've done your homework, of course. A thick silence followed. Only the soft ticking of a modern chrome wall clock reminded them that time still moved. He studied her. Celine Carrington, America's youngest self-made billionaire. Ice in her veins, steel in her spine, untouchable. Until now, for a fleeting moment, he saw something in her, not weakness, not desperation, but a flicker of loneliness so faint it could have been imagined. So let me get this straight, he murmured, stepping forward. You want me to live in your house, pretend to be your husband, smile for cameras, but no touching, no connection, no real marriage. Exactly, she replied without hesitation. And if my daughter calls you mom by accident? Celine's lips parted slightly. She exhaled. Then I'll have to learn how to answer her. That silence again, this time heavier. You don't want a partner, Celine. You want camouflage, a name beside yours that makes men at boardrooms feel less threatened. I'm still deciding whether to be insulted or impressed. You'd be surprised how powerful a last name still is to those men, she said softly. I'm not surprised, he muttered. Just disappointed. Her voice softened, barely perceptible. I've survived in a world designed by men who believe women are only complete with a husband. This isn't about romance, Mr. Whitaker. It's about survival. He raked a hand through his hair. His thoughts were a storm of worn-out hopes and unspoken fears. 3 years of security, the end of scrambling through night shifts and side jobs. A real doctor for Leia. Still, what does it teach her? He asked. That we sell ourselves for safety. Celine's reply came like a whisper, sharp and true. That we sacrifice for those we love, quietly, without applause. That struck deeper than he expected. Why me? He asked again, his voice gentler. She hesitated. Because you looked at me like I was human, not an asset, not a threat, not a prize, just a woman. He froze. Outside, the sun had begun its descent, casting the room in golden shadows. Celine stepped to her desk and slid a sleek folder onto the glass surface. Read it. You have 48 hours. If you won't do it, I'll find someone else. But I don't want anyone else. I want someone who gains nothing except a better life for his daughter. He didn't touch the folder. Not yet. But when he met her gaze, really looked past the corporate frost, past the walls that wasn't steel, he saw. It was something cracked, something unfinished. You don't trust easily, do you? Celine's voice was almost broken when she answered. Trust has never given me anything but pain. He looked down at the folder, then back at her, then, at last, he asked, Where's the pen? It rained the night they moved in. Not a gentle drizzle, but a relentless downpour that painted the Carrington estate in muted gray and soaked straight through Graham's worn boots. As he stepped from the town car, Leah was curled in his arms, her little body limp with sleep, her breath warm against his neck. Celine stood in the doorway beneath the grand arch, stone and shadow framing her like a statue of a woman untouched by weather, emotion, or time. "Welcome," she said, voice devoid of ceremony. Graham offered nothing in return, just nodded and stepped inside with his daughter. The house was all marble and silence, a museum of power. The staff didn't speak. They bowed slightly, but one older housekeeper, eyes soft with maternal warmth, offered Leah a blanket and whispered something soothing in Spanish. It was the only warmth in the entire estate. 3 years passed. Cold, predictable, distant. They shared no bed, no meals, no smiles, only choreographed moments for cameras and shareholders. In public, she was elegance incarnate. In private, they passed like phantoms in long, empty corridors. Graham woke early, packed Leah's lunch, walked her to the elite academy. Celine's money had unlocked, did odd repairs around the estate, tinkered on freelance design projects at night. Celine never asked about him or about Leah, and he told himself it didn't matter. He hadn't signed up for a mother. He had signed for shelter. But sometimes, as he walked past her office late at night and saw her still working beneath that harsh fluorescent glare, his heart ached not for himself, but for his daughter, who once asked, "Why doesn't she like hugs?" Then everything broke. Leah's cough worsened. By 2 a.m., she was wheezing, struggling. Her lips tinct blue. Panic surged through Graham's veins as he wrapped her in a blanket and ran. He banged on Celine's office door. She opened it instantly, saw the terror in his eyes and the child in his arms. And for the first time in 3 years, her armor cracked. "Hospital?" he asked. She didn't answer. She was already moving. Minutes later, a private medical team arrived, equipment, oxygen, life-saving care that he could never afford. Celine stood rigid at first, her arms like iron bars at her sides. But when the doctor finally said, "She'll be okay," something inside her trembled. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" she asked. "You made it clear," Graham said quietly, cradling Leah's tiny hand. "She wasn't your concern." Celine winced. "That wasn't fair. She's a child. You know her name." Her lips parted, closed, then whispered, "Leah." He stared at her. "She calls you the lady with no smile." Her eyes fell. Silence. Stretched out, waited with 3 years of words unsaid. "Do you want us to leave?" he asked. "No." It came too fast, too certain. "Why?" "Because this house feels less empty when you're in it." It was the first honest thing she had ever said. The next morning, Graham found her in the kitchen, no makeup, hair tied back, holding a coffee mug with 2 hands like she needed its warmth. "You don't have to be here," he offered, not unkindly. "I couldn't sleep." He watched her, something unspoken simmering between them. "We've lived in the same house for years, but we don't even know each other. It's easier that way." "For who?" Her voice dropped. "For me." He filled a glass of water. 3 years, Celine, and you've never asked about her school, her drawings, her little fox plush she can't sleep without. "I'm not good with children, or people, or feelings." "Then what are you good at?" She met his gaze. "Surviving." It wasn't bitter. It was just true. "Maybe," he said softly, "you don't have to survive anymore. Maybe you can start living." She looked away, gripping the counter like the truth had shifted the ground beneath her. "You said no feelings. That was the deal." He gave a small smile. "Life doesn't follow deals. Especially not when a little girl draws pictures of you and still hopes you'll smile back." That night, Celine stood in Leah's doorway, watching, silent. "I don't know how to be what she needs," she whispered. "Start by showing up," Graham said. She didn't reply, but she nodded. It was small, but in that nod, a wall began to crumble. One morning, an envelope appeared on the kitchen counter. Carrington Group letterhead. Inside a formal invitation, the 25th anniversary gala of Carrington Real Estate. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "Graham, I need you there. Celine." Not because the cameras demanded it, but because perhaps for the first time she wanted him there, with her, not as a contract, but as a partner, maybe even as family. He read the card a second time. Even though once was more than enough, Celine never asked, never wrote, never needed, yet here it was an invitation, deliberate and elegant, pressed between layers of stiff formality and quiet urgency, upstairs. Sunlight spilled across the nursery floor like honey, and Leia sat cross-legged on the carpet, her fingers stained with watercolor, painting a vibrant scene of their tiny backyard. Graham knelt beside her, and his heart ached a little when he noticed the unmistakable detail of a tiny figure in a navy dress, holding a balloon, standing next to a fox. She's smiling, Leia whispered with a conspiratorial grin. Who is Miss Celine? Her voice dipped to a hush, as if speaking it too loud would break the spell. I think she wants to smile, but maybe she forgot how, that evening. Graham knocked gently on the study door. The room, dim and bathed in the soft glow of a desk lamp, smelled faintly of ink and polished wood. Celine looked up from her laptop, strands of hair slipping loose from their pins, sleeves rolled past her elbows. She didn't look like the bulletproof CEO tonight. She looked tired, human. You need something? She asked, her voice quieter than usual. He held up the card. Mandatory, huh? She rose, circled the desk slowly. I wouldn't have used that word if I had any other option. Graham tilted his head. You always have a choice. Not when the board smells blood in the water. She murmured. They've been circling for years, waiting to replace me with someone more palatable. You mean male. She didn't deny it. I've held them off by looking like I have it all together, married, grounded, emotionally stable. Her lips twisted. But this gala is different. International investors, media. One misstep, and I'm just there to make you look domesticated. He finished, his tone clipped. She exhaled slowly. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? Her voice dipped. I meant, I trust you more than anyone else in that room. That stopped him cold. No PR script, no contract language, just the raw, vulnerable truth of a woman used to walls. I don't need you to love me, she said softly. Just don't let me look like I failed at being human. Graham stared at her for a long moment. Then he said the most unexpected thing. What do I wear? The Whitmore was dripping with excess marble so polished it reflected insecurities. Chandeliers that glittered like the dreams of 1,000 broken men, and tuxedos too stiff to breathe in. Graham hated every second of it. And yet, Celine, she was radiant, draped in a midnight blue gown that shimmered like a galaxy sewn into silk, her hair cascading in soft waves down her back. She moved through the crowd like the very air belonged to her. It wasn't the diamonds or the dress that made people stare. It was her command, her stillness. Everyone wanted her, or feared her, or both. And then there was Graham, unembellished in a simple black tux, standing beside her like an anchor in a sea of sharks. You clean up well, she murmured. He raised a brow. I feel like I'm impersonating someone richer. You're impersonating my husband, she said, then paused. But tonight, it doesn't feel like pretending. He didn't have time to reply before someone cut in. Celine Carrington, you finally brought the elusive husband. The man was slick in the way only money could buy, mid-50s, grinning with the confidence of someone who thought charm was a currency. Celine's tone was smooth. Graham Whitaker, my husband. Graham shook the man's hand with calm resolve. Investor, Daniel Wexler, he said, board member, occasional thorn in your wife's side. And here I thought you were just the entertainment, Graham said, matching his grin. Wexler laughed, sharp and rehearsed. Don't let this one go, Celine. That's not the plan, she replied, her smile tight. Through the evening, they worked the room, Celine offering poised greetings and Graham quietly observing. But he saw something no one else seemed to notice, the stiffness in her smile, the dart of her eyes, the constant scanning, calculating, surviving. She wasn't cold. She was armored. Later, they stepped out onto the terrace. Below, the city glittered like a constellation. Wind tugged at Celine's gown. her profile lit by ballroom light. "You hate this," she said. "I do. You're good at hiding it." "I've had practice." She looked out over the city. "This is the only world I know. Money, deals, masks. You don't belong in it." He stepped beside her. "Maybe that's why you wanted me here." Celine turned toward him. "Why did you say yes?" "Graham." "Really?" He hesitated. "Because my daughter needed a future. I needed to breathe. I thought I could survive by staying invisible." He met her gaze. "But I stopped being invisible the day I saw a little girl. Draw a picture of you smiling because she believed. You might." Her breath caught. "Do you think I'm unfeeling?" "No." He said, "I think you're scared. And I think no one ever told you that you don't have to be perfect to deserve love." She looked at him, something delicate cracking behind her eyes, and then she laughed out soft, real, uncontrolled. "Say that again," she whispered. "You don't have to be perfect, just real." In that moment, for the first time in years, Celine Carrington wasn't performing. She was simply there. The applause rose like thunder as she stepped onto the stage. Perfect posture, impeccable poise, but behind the curtain, Graham saw the truth. A woman holding her breath. Her voice rang clear. "Thank you for celebrating 25 years of Carrington Real Estate. My father built this company with vision and grit. Tonight we honor that legacy and the future." Polite applause, but then her voice softened. "I'd also like to thank my husband, Graham Whitaker. He entered my life without demand, without expectation, and in doing so, reminded me that stability is not weakness and silence is not absence." The room rippled with whispers, glances. Evelyn Grant's eyes narrowed. But Graham wasn't watching them. He was watching her. Backstage, she stepped down slowly, tension rolling off her shoulders like a coat she no longer needed. "That was unexpected." Graham said. "I meant it." Celine replied, eyes on the floor. "I don't say things I don't mean." "No," he said. "You just avoid saying the things that matter." Before she could respond, Evelyn arrived graceful as ever, holding a glass of champagne and enough poison to kill a room. "Lovely speech," she purred. Celine's smile was cool. "Evelyn." Then Evelyn turned to Graham. "So this is the mystery man. Not what I pictured. I get that a lot." He replied. Evelyn leaned. "I once asked Celine what kind of man could keep up with her. She said, 'I don't need someone to keep up. I need someone who'll keep me grounded while I fly.'" Celine's jaw flexed. "You've got a good memory," she said. "I do." Evelyn smiled. "Let's hope your husband has the stamina for the long haul." She vanished. A shark in silk. "She doesn't like me," Graham observed. "She doesn't like anyone she can't manipulate." "Then I must be exhausting." Celine looked at him, and for the first time, said it aloud. "You're the only one in my life who tells me the truth even when I hate hearing it." "Is that a compliment?" "It's the highest one I know." Later, back at the estate, Graham loosened his tie while Celine stood at the window in her gown, arms folded. "She didn't win tonight," he said. "You did." She didn't reply immediately. "That speech wasn't part of the plan." "Then why say it?" She hesitated. "Because something's changing, and I don't know what to do with that." He stepped closer. "You don't have to. Change doesn't need a strategy. You're really not like anyone I've ever known. Is that good or bad?" "It's terrifying." Silence stretched. Then she whispered, "When I was 16, my father told me that love weakens women, that to survive, I had to feel less, want less. He was wrong. He was powerful. So are you." Graham said, "But real power isn't about walls. It's about letting someone in." She turned to face him. "And what if I choose?" "Wrong? You already did." He said softly, "You married a stranger." Her mouth curved. "Fair point. But that stranger knows how to fix broken things, and he knows bedtime stories by heart." She looked up at him, and he doesn't flinch when the CEO is on the verge of breaking. "No," he whispered. He holds her steady. She stepped closer. "Just enough. I didn't expect to care," she said. Neither did I. Their eyes met. The air between them hummed. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Then let's learn together." he said. One small, terrifying, honest step at a time. The next morning, Graham packed Leia's lunch. She tugged his sleeve. Daddy, was Miss Celine happy last night? Why do you ask? Because I heard her laugh. He knelt, cupped her face. I think she's remembering. Remembering what? That she used to be someone's little girl too, upstairs. Celine stood at the window, watching father and daughter below for the first time. She didn't feel like a woman locked in a tower. She felt like someone who might finally be ready to come down. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real power begins. In the days that followed, Celine felt something strange whenever she saw Graham at the school gates, sunlight catching in his hair, laughter on his lips. She felt breathless, and when she saw him smiling beside another woman, elegant, kind, crouched beside Leia, listening to her little sketches, Celine didn't feel jealous. She felt afraid, because that burn in her chest wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was the terrifying, beautiful ache of a heart learning how to hope again. When the ice begins to melt, Carrington, she blinked, voice sharp enough to draw blood. Pull around. The words left her mouth before she could temper them, but the weight in her chest had been building for hours, climbing from the base of her spine and settling behind her ribs like a knot of storm clouds. And by the time Celine stepped through the front doors of her estate that evening, the unease had twisted deeper into something darker. The scent of tea reached her first floral, warm, not hers. Then voices, familiar, but not expected. In the kitchen, a woman sat at the island like she belonged there. Her laughter danced through the space, mingling with Mrs. Ramirez's gentle voice, to women at ease in each other's company. Graham stood at the stove, apron on, sleeves rolled up, spatula in hand. It was such a domestic scene it almost looked like a painting one she had no part in. You're early, he said with a smile. Clearly not early enough, Celine replied, the chill in her tone unmistakable. Graham's brow furrowed slightly. Before he could say more, the woman stood and extended a hand. Dr. Nora Avery, she said warmly, pediatric cardiologist. I've been working with Leia for the past few months. Today was her follow-up. Celine froze. The center, she echoed, trying to sound neutral and failing. She's been volunteering, Graham said. Our therapy on Fridays. She and Leia really connected. I see. The words came out flat, emotionless. Nora didn't seem to notice. Leia's thriving. Her coloring's improved. She's been sleeping better too. You must be doing something right. You, not we. And Graham, Nora added, laughing lightly. He's a natural. If I'm not careful, I might steal him for myself. It was a joke, a harmless, passing remark, but it landed like a slap. Celine's jaw tightened. Graham, may I speak with you? She said curtly, already turning toward the hallway. Once the door shut behind them, the temperature dropped several degrees. What was that? She demanded. What was what? He asked, confused. That performance, the smiling, the charm. You look like she stopped herself. Like what? He pressed. Like I belonged with her? His tone wasn't sharp, but it carried weight. You asked me to show up for Leia. He said quietly. I did. You never said I couldn't. Be kind in the process. She's your doctor, Celine snapped, not your friend. She's helping Leia. She's been kind. You don't get to dictate kindness. I'm not. She stopped, took a breath. I'm not used to this. To what? He asked gently. To feeling something when someone gets too close. Silence. I'm not jealous, she said quickly, but even she didn't believe it. Graham stepped closer. Celine, you've spent your whole life building a fortress no one could enter. Now someone might be reaching for me, and you suddenly care. She looked away. I'm not trying to hurt you, he added, but you can't demand the comfort of distance while still expecting the privileges of closeness. That's not how this works. She swallowed hard. I don't know how to be fair. Graham's voice softened. Then don't be perfect. Just be honest. That night, Celine lingered outside Leia's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, her daughter lay curled beneath her blanket. the ever-present stuffed fox beneath her chin. On the nightstand sat a small painting done in childlike strokes, full of color and heart. It was of Celine, wearing the same dress from the gala, a wide smile across her face. Beside her, holding hands, stood a little girl with bright yellow shoes. Below it, in blocky handwriting, were the words, "Maybe she's learning to love." Celine's breath caught in her throat. She turned and nearly collided with Graham. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "About earlier." He nodded. "You don't owe me perfection, Celine. Just effort." Her voice was barely a whisper. "What if effort isn't enough?" "It is," he said. "If it's real." They stood in silence this time, not cold, but soft, heavy with understanding. "She draws me smiling," Celine said quietly. "She believes you will." He replied, "I don't remember the last time I smiled and meant it." "You did," Graham said. "At the gala." Her eyes flicked up. "You noticed." "I noticed everything." He didn't say it to impress her. He said it because it was true, and for the first time, Celine nodded slowly. "I'll try," she said, "not just for Leia. For me." Graham smiled. "That's all I've been waiting for." That night, alone in her room, Celine stared at the painting again. "Maybe she's learning to love." The words were innocent, unaware of the weight they carried, but Celine knew, and for once, she didn't turn away. She embraced them. Maybe love didn't arrive with fanfare. Maybe it crept in through the small cracks, through the sting of jealousy, the softness of regret, the silent courage it took to try. The past never knocks. It breaks the lock and walks through the front door just when you think you buried it. Celine hadn't thought about Julian in years. His name had faded from fire to ash, but the moment she saw the envelope, thick, cream-colored, unmarked, her heart fell like a stone. Inside was a single photo. Julian standing beside a sleek black car in Paris, older, still sharp, still smug. Beneath it, scrawled in his precise, mocking handwriting, "I hear you finally said I do. I wonder if it was love this time." Her fingers trembled. Then the door creaked. Graham entered, a folder in hand. Leia's school, parent volunteer form. But he stopped when he saw her face. "What is it?" She didn't answer, just handed him the photo. He stared at it. "Who is he?" "My past," she said quietly. "The worst part of it. An ex." She nodded. "Mentor, investor, the first man I trusted, and the first one who taught me just how dangerous that can be." Graham didn't interrupt. He believed emotions made you weak. That loyalty was leverage. He trained me, then used that training to dismantle me. She met his gaze. "When I left, I swore I'd never let anyone have that power again, and now he's back." Graham said, "He always reappears when I'm close to something real, like he can sense it." That night, after Leia had gone to bed, Celine stood in the study, wine in hand, gazing out into the dark. Graham entered quietly, waiting. Finally, she spoke. "Do you know what he told me when I left?" He shook his head. "You'll never be more than what I made you. You're a shell with polish. You can imitate love, but you'll never feel it." Her voice cracked barely. "I've carried that voice for 10 years. It's why I built walls, why I learned to survive, not live." Graham stepped closer. What if he was wrong? What if he wasn't? That he wouldn't have sent a photo. Graham said he would have shown up himself. Men like that don't write unless they're afraid of being forgotten. Celine stared at the picture. "He knew every part of me, and he used it to hurt me." "I know every scar you carry," Graham said, "and I haven't walked away." His voice wasn't offensive, it was present, firm, unshaken. "I'm not him, and you're not the woman who needed him." She was silent for a long moment. Then she asked, "Why haven't you walked away, Graham?" His answer came slowly. "Because I see the parts of you that you've forgotten are still alive, and I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to stand beside you while you heal." Her throat tightened. "What if I fail? Then I'll still be here tomorrow." Julian didn't show up again, but his ghost lingered. Celine didn't retreat, not this time. She started joining Graham and Leia for breakfast. At first, she was quiet, but one morning, as Leah proudly showed her a crayon drawing of their family. Celine touched her hand gently. "You're very talented," she said. Leah's eyes lit up. "Really? I wouldn't lie to an artist." That night, Graham found Celine in her office. A small photo album open in her lap. "Found this in storage," she said. One photo showed a girl with wild curls, popsicle in both hands, smiling. "Wide with crooked teeth. She looks happy," Graham said. "She was," Celine whispered. Before the world told her not to be. He didn't speak, just took her hand. A few nights later, Celine stood before her bathroom mirror, brushing her hair. Her reflection looked softer. There was a new light, fragile, but real. She turned. Graham stood in the doorway. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Ask. Do you think someone like me can be loved? Not for what I built, just for me?" He stepped closer. "I already do." She took another step. "And if I break again, then we rebuild," he said, "together." The next morning, Celine entered her office and found a box on her desk. No note, no label. Inside was the photograph Julian had sent, torn cleanly in half. On the back, scribbled in familiar handwriting, "He doesn't define you anymore." Graham had done it, quietly, without drama. Just a gesture that spoke louder than any words ever could. And for the first time in years, Celine Carrington cried, not out of fear, not out of pain, but because she realized she wasn't alone anymore. It started with laughter. Real, unfiltered laughter echoing through the kitchen, filling the walls with warmth. Celine was barefoot, wearing one of Graham's old flannel shirts, stirring pancake batter. Leah sat on the counter, flour dusting her nose. Graham flipped a pancake with theatrical flair. Leah squealed. "Daddy's a chef and a ninja." Celine smirked. "I'd settle for doesn't burn breakfast." "Don't jinx it." Graham grinned. Celine leaned against the counter, watching them. She didn't say it out loud, but she knew. This ordinary joy was what she once believed would never belong to her. But even the warmest kitchens can't keep storms at bay. That afternoon, Monica's voice crackled through the intercom. "Urgent. Celine, you'll want to see this." A link, a headline. "Carrington CEO's marriage under fire. Sources claim it's all for show photos, the gala, the estate." And finally, the blow: Julian arriving at a Manhattan hotel. The article buzzed with innuendo, speculation, accusations. That Graham was paid, that Leah wasn't his child, that it was all a carefully constructed lie. Celine sat frozen. "We've received 3 media requests. The board is restless," Monica added. Celine closed the laptop and walked out. Graham was helping. Leah with a puzzle. "I need to talk to you," Celine said, voice cold. Leah blinked. "Are you mad?" "No, sweetheart," Graham said gently. "Go wash up for dinner." When she was gone, Celine's composure snapped. "Why didn't you tell me you spoke to Julian?" Graham stood. "What? He's in New York. Paparazzi caught him. And now half the internet knows about our arrangement, including details no one should have." He frowned. "You think I talked to him? I think someone did. And you're the only variable I don't control." The words hung between them, sharp, wounding, final. And for the first time in this fragile, blooming thing between them, trust trembled. The quiet bloom of love. Graham hurriedly looked at her, not as the CEO or the woman who always stood behind glass walls, but as someone he'd fought beside, cried beside, loved beside. "So this is where we are," he said quietly. Back to suspicion, Celine stood tall, arms folded like a shield, her voice laced with control. "I built this company from ashes. I've been betrayed before by people I trusted, people I believed in. I won't let that happen again. And what am I to you?" Graham's voice was steady, but the undercurrent was pain. "Another threat to your empire, or the man who's been raising your daughter like she's his own. That's not fair." "No," he said, his tone sharp now, the edge of betrayal cutting through. "What's not fair is that I've done everything you asked. I stood beside you through every storm, protected your name when it cost me my own, and still you look at me like I'm expendable." Her throat tightened. I didn't mean, yes, you did, he interrupted, eyes flashing, because deep down, you still believe love is transactional. That trust is a luxury you can't afford. Celine blinked, and for the first time in years, she felt fear not of him, but of herself, of the girl inside who had never quite believed she deserved to be loved. Graham exhaled slowly. The fire had cooled, turned to ash in his chest. I can't teach you how to trust, Celine, he said, his voice softer now. But I can't keep proving I'm not the enemy either. He turned toward the door. When you decide whether I'm your husband or your hired help, let me know. She stayed long after the silence settled over the house. Not even the gentle hum of Leia's bedtime story played anymore. The glow of her laptop dimmed to black, and all she could do was stare at the ring on her finger, symbol of a contract. But maybe something more. She remembered Graham's words once. You stopped being invisible. The moment you stood up for a little girl who still believed you might smile. Was she doing the same now, standing up for the broken girl she used to be, or pushing away the one man who dared to love her through the wreckage? Just after midnight, she heard soft footsteps. When she opened the door, Leia stood there, clutching her stuffed fox. Can't sleep, she whispered. Celine knelt. Nightmare? Leia shook her head. No, I heard you fighting. Is Graham leaving us? Celine's heart cracked open. No, baby, he's just upset. Leia's sleepy eyes searched hers. You make him happy, she said, but he makes you warm. Celine's breath caught. Don't let the warmth go away, Leia whispered. Then she threw her arms around her mother, holding her so tightly it felt like forgiveness wrapped in a child's embrace. The next morning, Graham stood at the counter packing Leia's lunch, his movements precise and quiet, not angry, but worn. Tired, Celine stepped in, barefoot, still in her silk robe. He glanced at her, then returned to the task. I'll be gone most of the day, he said. Got work in Midtown. She didn't respond until he turned toward the door. I believe you, she said softly. He stopped. I believe you didn't leak anything. And I believe if you'd seen Julian, you would have told me. He turned, slowly. That belief came overnight. No, she said, voice trembling. It came after I realized something scarier than being wrong. What's that? Being right, and losing you. A beat passed. Then he asked, gently, what do you want? Celine, she swallowed. I want a life where I don't have to question the people who love me. I want to be the kind of woman who doesn't burn every bridge she builds. And I want to come home to you, not the contract version. You, the man who makes my daughter laugh and reminds me I'm still human. Graham's breath escaped slowly. I can't promise I won't mess up, she added, but I can promise I won't run. He was silent for a moment, and then he said, that's the first real thing you've ever said to me. Celine stepped closer and reached for his hand. Then let me say one more. Her fingers closed around his. I need you, not for the deal, not just for Leia. I need you because you're the first man who ever stayed even when I wasn't perfect. And for the first time, there was no business between them, just breath and hope and something startlingly real. She had survived mutinies, lawsuits, hostile takeovers, but nothing had prepared her for the quiet violence of standing in the middle of her glass walled office, surrounded by people who once admired her, now watching her with sharpened gazes. 12 board members, some she had mentored, some she had defeated, all now sat with their verdicts dangling in the air. Miss Carrington, began Harold Whitmore, the board's elder voice, slow and authoritative. We've reviewed the media, fallout, investor complaints, and formal objections from 3 major stakeholders. Effective immediately, the board calls for a vote of confidence. Depending on the outcome, we may consider temporary executive suspension for the good of the company's public image. It struck harder than she expected, not from pride, but because, for once, she saw how fragile control really was. Only Dana Lynn, the youngest at the table, met her eyes, 32, sharp, fearless, a kind of woman Celine once used to be. I want to hear her speak, Dana said, not her lawyer, not her PR rep, Celine, and so she rose. You all know what I've done for Carrington Holdings, she said, voice clear. You've seen me shield it, bleed for it. I miss weddings, funerals, birthdays all for this place. She paused, her throat tightened, then steadied. But I made a mistake. I forgot that building an empire doesn't mean much if no one's waiting at home to share it. A few brows lifted. I married a man who didn't come from this world. Not for optics, not for strategy, but because he reminded me I was still alive. Yes, we signed a contract, out of fear, out of distrust. But everything real since then was built with hands, not lawyers. She looked around the table. You can suspend me, reverend me, strip my title. But I promise Carrington survives not because we're untouchable, but because we tell the truth. Silence followed. Then Dana spoke. I vote to keep her. By a thread 5-4, with 3 abstentions, Celine remained. Not a victory, a warning. That evening, the sky swelled with lavender and storm clouds. Celine stood at the edge of the estate garden, the wind brushing her cheek. Graham joined her quietly, heard about the vote. He said, I stayed. She replied, but just barely. 1 vote. That's all it took to teeter between legacy and exile. He looked at her. Do you regret it? No, but I'm starting to wonder if I built a legacy, or cage so gilded I forgot I was a prisoner. Graham was quiet, then asked, and if it is a cage, I choose the door, she said, even if it means leaving behind everything I once thought I needed. She turned to him. When you first saw me, what did you see? He didn't hesitate. A woman trying not to drown in a pool she built herself. She nodded, slowly, and now a woman finally swimming toward the shore. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I don't want to go back to the woman who needed armor to feel safe. Then don't. He said simply, choose love over legacy, life over legend. I think I'm ready to stop surviving. She whispered, I want to live. That night, Celine tucked herself beside Leia's bed. Did you know, she said softly, when I was your age, I thought grown-ups had all the answers. Leia giggled. You don't. Celine laughed. No, I don't. I'm still figuring them out. Leia looked up, serious. Is that why you cried last night? Celine blinked. You saw. I pretended to sleep, she said. But I saw. I didn't say anything. Celine took her hand. Sometimes we cry when we realize we've been walking in the wrong direction, and we're scared to turn around. Did you turn around? I'm trying, Celine whispered, but it's easier with you and your dad beside me. Leia snuggled in close. Then we'll walk with you, even if you're scared. That midnight, Celine stood in her office surrounded by the transparent walls that once made her feel powerful. Now they made her feel seen, vulnerable, human. She picked up her phone. Julian, she said when the line connected. His smooth voice poured through. Celine, I thought you lost my number. I didn't call to reminisce, she said coolly. I called to say this: you don't get to define me anymore. A pause. You don't get to haunt me through headlines or taunt me through photos. You don't get to watch me from shadows. Julian chuckled. Is this your grand rebirth? No, she said. This is the part where I tell you, I found something you'll never understand. And what's that? Family, real love, the strength to burn everything down and still walk away whole. She hung up before he could reply. She returned to bed. Graham was already there, one arm stretched across her side of the bed. She slid beneath the covers. He stirred. Everything okay? I let go tonight, she whispered. Of fear, of the story, of the past. He kissed her hair. What's left? She smiled into the dark. Me, and the people who chose to stay. Rain tapped gently at the windows that Sunday morning, like a lullaby from the sky. The house was still, wrapped in gray softness. Celine watched from the stairs as Graham and Leia built a cardboard fort in the living room. Their laughter, the melody of a life she'd once believed was beyond her reach. Then Leia said something that made Celine freeze. Wait, I want to add Mommy's box. Graham looked up. What box? Sweet pea. Leia returned with a small floral tin, cradled like a secret. Mommy gave it to me before the hospital. She said it was our secret. Graham's expression shifted. Where did you keep this? In my closet, behind the big books. I didn't want to forget her. Celine came down the stairs, her steps slow. May I see it? Leia nodded and opened the tin dot inside Dash's crumpled drawings, a faded Polaroid, a folded note. Graham picked up the photo, a woman brunette, tired eyes but kind smile holding the tiny Leia. On the back, it read, Nora and Leia, Spring Picnic, 2019. Celine still. Graham read the name aloud. Nora. Leia beamed. That's my first mommy. Silence, deep and tender. Do you remember what happened to her? Celine asked softly. She got sick, Leia whispered. The nurses said she went to sleep forever, and the box, she gave it to me before she left. She said if I ever got scared, I could open it and remember she loved me. Celine's vision blurred. Graham unfolded one last drawing. It showed Leia in the middle, holding hands with two women. One was labeled Mommy Nora, the other Mommy Celine. She stared at the name in bright purple crayon beneath the smiling figure with long blonde hair. She already gave you that title. Graham said gently, I didn't know she saw me that way. She did, he whispered, long before you believed it. That night, alone in her study, Celine unfolded the last slip of paper, Nora's handwriting faint but strong filled. The page dot to whoever finds this. If something happens to me, please just love her. The quiet sky where love grows, an emotionally immersive retelling focus on healing, love, and the courage to begin again. She wasn't just sunshine. She was the whole sky vast, layered, sometimes radiant, sometimes stormy, and Nora had known that. She had known Celine would come to find the weight of that truth one day. Celine's fingers trembled as she folded the letter, the paper delicate and soft from age, yet heavy with meaning. Teach her it's okay to cry. Let her be loud. If she chooses to trust you, hold it gently. It means more than you know. And if you're another woman like me, thank you, because real love doesn't care about titles. It only wants a place to grow. With all my heart, Nora. Celine hadn't expected this. Not today. Maybe not ever. That night, after Leia had fallen asleep, the hush of rain whispered through the windows. Celine found Graham out on the porch, cradling a warm mug of tea, watching. The water danced down the railings. Wordlessly, she sat beside him. For a long time, they just listened. She was brave, Celine said at last, her voice barely their hush in the storm. She was, Graham replied, his gaze steady on the darkness beyond. Celine exhaled slowly. I think I was jealous of a ghost, a woman I never met. Graham remained silent. I spent so much time trying to earn Leia's love, on my terms, with my walls up. I didn't even notice she'd already given it. I was waiting for a title, one I already had. She turned to him, her voice, for once, not made of steel. I don't want to be just Celine anymore. I want to be her mother. Fully, unapologetically, he reached for her hand, wrapped his fingers around hers with quiet certainty. Then she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. The rain softened. Do you think she'd be proud of Leia? Always, he said without hesitation. And of you? Absolutely. Celine let those words settle into her chest, deeper than any boardroom praise had ever reached. I used to think love was something you had to earn, she whispered, a performance, a negotiation. But now I see it's something to protect, something sacred, and sometimes something you inherit. Graham smiled. Sounds like a family to me. The next morning, sunlight spilled gently into the kitchen as Celine stirred eggs on the stove. Lay about it in, bright-eyed and bubbling with excitement. Guess what I did? Celine turned, smiling. What? I changed the name on the fort. Graham raised a curious brow. Leia held up a new sign, glitter gleaming. It used to say, Leia's house, but now it says our home. She marched proudly to the pillow fort and taped it above the entrance, her small fingers pressing each corner with ceremony. Celine crouched beside her, her heart full. That's beautiful, because homes, Leia said confidently, aren't just where you sleep. They're where people choose you. Celine pulled her into a fierce hug, whispering, Thank you for choosing me. Leia grinned against her neck. You were always in my picture. That evening, Celine took the floral tin, the one that had held so many silent memories, and brought it into Leia's room. She gently placed it on the shelf above her bed. I think this belongs here now, she said softly. Leia tilted her head. But isn't it Mommy Nora's? Yes, Celine said. And that's why it should stay with the girl she loved most. Leia touched the tin tenderly, then turned to Celine with wide, hopeful eyes. Will you read me a story tonight? Celine smiled, tears stinging her lashes. I'd love to. She opened the book, her voice calm and warm, as Leia drifted off to sleep. Tucked beneath her blankets, Celine glanced at the shelf once more, to names, to legacies, and one child loved entirely, without condition. The boardroom was silent too. Silent. Celine stood at the head of the polished marble table, fingers lightly grazing the cold surface. Behind her, the Manhattan skyline flared gold, the day slipping away in gilded silence. She drew in a breath, not to steel herself for battle, but to steady the truth that was about to fall. I'm stepping down, she said, as CEO of Carrington. Holdings. The jolt of disbelief rippled across the room. Chairs shifted, voices murmured, faces twisted in confusion. You can't, someone said. This is hasty. Celine, think this through. She raised one hand, calm, certain. I'd have thought this through for the past 12 years. I built this company from dust, survived backstabbing deals, billion-dollar pressure, sleepless nights, grief hidden behind perfect press releases, and somewhere along the line, I mistook survival for purpose. Dana Lynn, bright-eyed and brilliant, leaned forward. But you were Carrington. I was. Celine replied. But the brand, that's not the legacy I want to leave. She turned to the window briefly, then back to the room that had once been her kingdom. I want to build something that doesn't require walls and market share to feel real. I want to raise my daughter to see her mother as more than a headline, and I want to stop measuring my worth by the chaos of my calendar. Whitmore, stoic as always, asked, Is this about Graham? Celine met his gaze with quiet steel. No, this is about me. He simply reminded me that I exist outside spreadsheets and scandals. She looked at the portraits on the wall, her father's. Among them his face hard, distant, cold. I inherited this company because I was the only one ruthless enough to save it. But maybe the next person doesn't need to be ruthless. Maybe they just need to believe that people matter more than numbers. Dana's voice broke through the hush. You're really doing this. Celine nodded. Letting go isn't failure. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. That night, Celine walked through the Carrington penthouse one last time, not as its queen, but simply as herself. She wandered through rooms once designed to impress, glass walls, sharp edges, award plaques like armor. None of it felt like home anymore. Until she reached her father's study. The door creaked open. It smelled like old wood, regret, and memories buried along. She lit a small lamp and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. There, dusty and untouched, was a letter. For Celine, when the weight becomes too much, hands shaking, she unfolded it. My dearest Celine, if you're reading this, then I've already left too many burdens on your shoulders. I'm sorry. I raised you like a soldier because that's how I survived. But I fear I taught you to fight so well. You forgot how to rest. Strength doesn't always mean winning. Sometimes it means letting someone else carry you. You are more than this company, more than my shadow. Go find what makes you feel alive, even if it's not in this tower. And know this, I was proud of you long before you ever sat in this chair. Love, Dad. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. For years, she carried his silence like a punishment. Now, she saw it as the only love he knew how to give. Delayed, perhaps, but real nonetheless. She folded the letter and let the grief soften out. Back at the estate, Graham rocked gently on the porch swing. The scent of chamomile tea drifted in the night air. Leia was asleep upstairs. Celine stepped out barefoot, her face bare, her armor gone. You're early, Graham said with a small smile. I quit, she replied, sitting beside him. He blinked. You're serious? I gave the crown back, she whispered, and I didn't shatter. He reached for her hand, held it like it had always been meant for his. How does it feel? Like I finally came home to myself. They sat quietly, in the stillness of night. There's something else, she said. I found a letter from my father. He said he was proud of me before I ever took the job. Graham smiled. Sounds like he knew you better than you thought. Maybe, she said. Or maybe he just wanted me to know I didn't have to earn love to deserve it. She looked at him, her voice thick with emotion. That's what you've taught me, Alea and Nora. He nodded, quiet understanding in his eyes. I used to think love made you soft, she said. Now I know it makes you real. Later that night, as they lay in bed under soft blankets, Graham turned to her. So, what now? Celine smiled, eyes closed. Now I find out what kind of life I can build. That has nothing to do with power. He chuckled. That sounds terrifying. Terrifying, she echoed, and finally, worth it. She leaned in and kissed him. Not as an obligation, not as a closing line, but as a gift. A choice. Their foreheads met, and she whispered, Thank you for loving the parts of me I hadn't met yet. Graham's voice was a murmur in the quiet. Thank you for finally coming home. The sky blushed lavender and rose, the kind of twilight that holds its breath before slipping into night dot in the backyard of the Carrington estate. Strings of paper lanterns swayed like fireflies caught in a dream. No photographers, no guest list, no expectations, just a barefoot little girl in a cotton dress, a garden soaked in light, and the people who had finally learned how to stay. Celine wore a simple dress, hair down in soft waves, her wrist adorned with a bracelet of wooden beads, each one painted with a tiny heart. Graham approached, tie loosened, smile open and free. You sure about this? He teased. For once in my life, Celine said. Absolutely. Leia came bounding up, holding a paper bouquet. You forgot your flowers? Celine knelt. Did you make these? Yep. And I spelled your names right this time. Graham laughed, scooping her up and spinning her once before setting her down between them. Ready to officiate, little miss? He asked. I was born ready, she said, clutching her notebook. They stood in a quiet circle, just the three of them and a few souls, whose hearts had been part of the journey. Leia cleared her throat and declared, Okay, you two, say your promises. Graham turned to Celine. I promise to keep learning how to love you not the way the world expects, but the way you need. I promise to protect the quiet between us, and to always remember your coffee order, even when you forget your own name. Leia giggled. Good. One. His voice deepened. And I promise to love your daughter not just as mine, but as ours, because that's what she's always been. Celine's eyes shimmered. I promise to let you in even when I want to close every door. To listen, not just wait to speak. I promise to hold your hand when you doubt, and remind you who you are when the world forgets. She looked at Leia. And I promise to be your mother, not just a name, but in every scraped knee, every dream, every morning, even when I'm tired, even when I'm scared. Because loving you is the easiest truth I've ever known. Leia beamed. You may now hug the bride. Laughter echoed. Graham pulled them both into his arms, and time paused just for a moment to let love bloom. Later, on the porch swing, fireflies flickering in the dark, Celine sipped her tea. Graham sat beside her, shoulder brushing hers. Didn't think I'd ever be part of something like this, he murmured. Celine leaned her head on his shoulder. Me neither, she whispered. You know, I didn't just leave a job. I left an empire. Graham smiled. And you found something bigger, he said. She nodded. Home? The quiet magic of home, an emotionally immersive retelling filled with transformation, warmth, and the healing power of chosen love. She nodded gently, as if releasing a piece of her past with grace. For a moment, he watched her carefully, the soft lines of her face illuminated by the porch light's amber glow. I thought I'd feel lost without it, she confessed, voice low but certain. He tilted his head, searching her expression, and, Do you? She turned toward him fully, eyes calm like a still sea after a storm. "No," she said quietly, "because I didn't lose anything. I traded up." A slow smile crept across his face, equal parts awe and relief. "For what?" "For a home," she whispered, the word tender like a prayer. "One that doesn't need walls to keep the world out, just people who choose each other." Every single day, inside, the house held its breath in contentment. Leia was asleep in her little room, curled around her well-loved stuffed rabbit like it was treasure. On her nightstand, beside a half-drunk glass of water, sat the floral tin Nora's box. But now, it had something new nestled inside, a photograph, freshly taped to the inside of the lid. It was the three of them captured just hours ago laughing, arms wrapped around one another beneath the canvas of twilight. Underneath, in Leia's bold as crayon scrawl, was a single word. Family morning arrived like a warm embrace. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows, painting the counters in soft gold. Celine stood at the stove, hair tied macilly, apron askew, flipping pancakes with undeniable enthusiasm and absolutely no skill. The scent of slightly burnt batter danced in the air. Across from her, Graham sat at the table, reading the paper, with his glasses perched precariously on the tip of his nose. Occasionally, he'd peer over the rim, amused. Leia perched on a stool at the kitchen island, feet swinging as she narrated the morning weather in an exaggerated British accent. "And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are expecting a delightful sprinkle of sunshine, accompanied by plop of pancake landed squarely on the floor." "Brilliant technique," Graham deadpanned, without even looking up. Celine hurled a dish towel in his direction. Trying not to laugh, Leia, of course, burst into giggles. "Mommy's going to need pancake lessons." And in that imperfect kitchen, surrounded by warmth, chaos, and the symphony of clinking dishes and shared glances, Celine felt something settle deep in her chest. Not relief, not triumph, peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from silence, but the kind that comes when the soul stops running. That evening, after the house had grown quiet again and the moon held steady in the sky, Celine took out her journal, and she wrote not to anyone else but to the girl she used to be. "You didn't fail. You simply outgrew the life that once held you like a too-tight dress. The title, the tower, the armor, it wasn't your wholeness. It was just how you survived. Power never made you complete, but love did. Real love, messy, inconvenient, terrifyingly uncertain, and absolutely glorious. You are not a position or a resume. You are not the pain that shaped your sharpest edges. You are a woman who dared to stay soft in a world that told her to be still. And that is your legacy." She closed the journal with reverence and leaned back, breathing deeply. Her heart wasn't heavy anymore. It was full. And now, maybe your heart feels full too. Maybe you've been quietly running, trying to earn love, trying to prove your worth, trying to hold the world together with trembling hands. If this story found you in that place, I hope it reminded you of this. You are not alone. You are not broken. And it's never too late to begin again. Whether you're watching from a quiet town nestled between hills, or from a balcony overlooking a bustling city, your story matters too. You matter. If any part of this story spoke to something tender in you, if it stirred something real, tell us. We'd love to hear. What moment stayed with you? What line felt like a reflection of your own journey? And if you believe in stories that hold truth, healing, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. There are more chapters of hope waiting to be told. Until then, take care of your heart and never stop believing in the quiet magic of home.